Most of us think we're pretty good judges of character. You know, if we ever ran into true evil, we'd notice. We'd notice that there was something off with that guy. There'd be something in the eye or some turn of phrase that would catch our attention, or we'd notice the random corpses kicking around their laundry room. There'd be signs. We'd notice. And we have to think that way. There's no illusion more tantalizing to the modern human than thinking we got a beat on things, thinking we got things figured out. It's how we get through life without a low-grade sense of terror, because the unknown is a very frightening thing. I think we all know that. So we tell ourselves every day that if something bad came in the room, we would feel it, we would see it, we would know it. But most people wouldn't. I mean, you would, right? You've watched a lot of horror and you pay attention and you're smarter than the average bear. Yeah, you'd pick up on it, right? You sure about that? I knew a guy years ago, but we'd take break together at work, and I liked him. He was a fun guy. Always a smile, always a joke. He had like a new joke every day. And it was fun to hang out with. And people around town would warn me off of him with all kinds of stories. But I mean, I didn't pay attention to it. It was a small town. And I don't know, there's rumors about everybody. So I just sort of didn't have time for that high school nonsense. But one day, he pulls me aside. He says, you know what, can we go over and talk? And I'm like, all right, man, what's on your mind? So we leave the break area. We start walking down this side of the building. I remember how cold it was. There was a little bit of snow, and just smoking my cigarette, hoping it doesn't put itself out. It was really cold. And he asked me if I heard the rumors about him. And I said, oh, yeah, but don't worry about it. I mean, everybody's got rumors. I don't pay attention to that stuff. And he says, no. I want to talk to you about it because it's true. I killed my best friend. So I ask him why, of course. I mean, the first question that comes to mind, right? I mean, and he just says real casually, I wanted to see what it felt like. Not even a shrug, like no apprehension in his voice. There was just a flat answer, like he was telling me what time it was. I never really knew for sure if he was telling the truth. I mean, I still don't. But the thing that stuck with me after all these years isn't, the question of whether or not he did it. It's that I couldn't tell. He didn't seem haunted. He didn't seem proud. He just seemed like a guy talking about what he got up to over the weekend. And it was only then that I let myself accept what I'd been picking up on this whole time. I had been seeing signs, but I wouldn't let myself notice them. And thinking back, those smiles were calculated. They would drop off at funny moments when he didn't think anybody was looking. And those jokes were rehearsed. And in every conversation we'd ever had, he never felt anything at all. We want killers to announce themselves. It's what's so comforting about horror. You see a clown with a knife, you know what's going on. You see some cultists with their rituals and their cloaks, okay. And, there's even the invisible evil with their symbols they want us to read carved on every tree. I don't know why they do that, but at least we understand, okay, this is evil coming for us. We've got a beat on it. We've got an understanding, even if it's mysterious evil. This is what we want. What we don't want is the truth, which is that real evil looks like nothing. It plays beer league hockey and parks cars at the restaurant and makes really good stew. So today's movie is one of the few horror movies that's brave enough to admit that. One scene he's stringing up a corpse, getting ready to butcher it. And then another scene he's parking cars and joking around with his only friend. And it's left people who've seen it so uncomfortable they don't want to talk about it, but you should talk about it, because I think people walk away in denial. I think people walk away from this movie so disturbed by some of the gore and the horror and then the comedy that they tell themselves that it was nothing. But that's the point. Evil looks like nothing. But before we get into that, my name's CJ, your movie god for the Found Footage broadcast. And if you've subscribed to this channel, you are a member of the cult of the movie god. Welcome, my fellow Found Footage fanatics. Hit that button below, you know the one. Roll the intro, here we go. Today we're doing Long Pigs, 2007. Long Pigs 2007. All right. This was a suggestion from Found Footage Fan. And with a username like Found Footage Fan, who am I to say no, right? And their only comment about the movie really was that not enough people talk about Long Pigs. And I 100% agree. Long Pigs is one of those movies that's just got shocking gore. We're going to get into that. But like the kind of gore that it's not just realistic, it's also visceral. That just gets under your skin, and that leaves me uncomfortable. I have to admit, I've seen a lot of gore, but we'll get into it. We'll get into it. But at the same time, it's funny. It's a funny movie, not silly funny. And the specific implementation of their humor might have like missed people. We'll again get into that too, because there's some really legitimately hilarious scenes, but they might have gotten lost because of how horrifying everything is. I think people struggle with this. I think there's like a real dichotomy between the horrifying aspects of this movie and the funny ones, and where they collide. So we're going to get into that. But first, I guess let's just cover the basic premise. The basic premise is this. You got a couple of filmmakers, or would-be filmmakers. This is going to be their first documentary. And they meet a guy who's a self-professed cannibal. So they decide, hey, fantastic documentary subject. And they convince him to make a documentary with them. And I think they thought he was kidding and that it would come out that he was full of it as they filmed, but he immediately shows that that's not the case. And there's this question, right? Like, what does he think is going to happen? But right up to the end of the movie, this cannibal, or this serial killer really, never questions like that, hey, this might land me in jail. like there's not a moment where he considers that possibility. It's just sort of like, oh, this is great. And maybe, there'll be some money in this. So he's like, all right, let's step up. So structurally, it's a lot like a Canadian version of Man Bites Dog. Yeah, this was all filmed in Canada. And you can really tell. It's got that Canadian vibe to it. There's a way that everyone carries themselves that you just don't get in any other kind of movie. But the comparison to Man Bites Dog makes a lot of sense, because Man Bites Dog was intended to be a comedy and was so disturbing that people couldn't see it that way. I think people have a similar struggle with Long Pigs. The disturbing scenes are so over the top disturbing, and our psychopath is so clearly psychopathic that it's hard for people to swallow that this was supposed to be funny. And so you end up with people going, I don't know if I liked it. But I mean, Man Bites Dog, for me, it's one of my favorites, man. It's on my must-watch list. So I think you've got to just sort of have the right mindset. And that's why I'm going to have a should you watch it section near the end of this video, so we can parse that out and see if it's going to hit for you. The lead in this movie, Anthony Alviano, if it wasn't for his performance as this guy who's just unflappable, he's got this very clearly defined guy from Canada personality, and it's completely consistent whether he's carving up a body in his basement, or he's dealing with a belligerent customer at work, or he's in the parking lot after a hockey game while everyone's chirping and yelling. He's just steady. He's steady throughout the whole thing until very specific moments in the movie. The things that flap him, though, are things that affect him personally, and it's hard for him to look at anything that happens in the world and relate it to himself. That's the psychopath way, right? It's the whole reason that psychopaths make us nervous, because the rest of us look at everything and everyone around us and see ourselves in it. Psychopaths don't do that. That is also why many have argued that psychopaths play an important role in society to balance things out a little bit, because most psychopaths don't kill anyone, okay? It's just the way it is. This psychopath, however, seems to think that butchering people and cooking them up is culinary excellence. And we get some hints very early on and then late in the movie about where he learned that. And I'm not going to ruin it for you, but a big hint is, if any of you know why almost no species on the planet, humans or otherwise, cannibalize. Nobody eats their own species. There's a specific health reason for that. And if you know that, you'll pick up on the hints near the beginning and end of this movie as to where he might have picked up this whole cannibalism thing. But outside of that, I think our cannibal has a couple of really interesting moments. I promise I'm going to get into the gore after this. But the thing about Long Pigs is it is not much of a plot movie and more of a character study. He's a psychopath, but I think at one point the filmmakers, they endeavor to expose him to the family of someone who he killed, and to try to make him feel guilty. And they ask him pointed questions after watching this dad burst into tears and everything. And the guy absolutely denies, no, this is stupid. This doesn't bother me. But he clearly gets upset. So the question is, does he feel guilt? Or is he just annoyed that he's being judged? And I literally don't know. I've watched the movie twice. I'm still not certain. But it is fascinating to watch because, again, our main actor, how did he pull it off that it's neutral? How did he pull it off that you can't tell? I think that's really ingenious. So we have two main tracks with this movie. You have horror and you have comedy. Now, in a typical horror comedy, the gags are simultaneous. The thing about horror and comedy is they're very, very intimate and close to each other. They're just gags. But here's how ridiculous this situation is. And if it's ridiculous and close to you, it's horror. If it's ridiculous and there's distance, it's comedy. And you could do horror comedies where both are true. A good example of that is Deadstream, where like the horrible ghoul pins him down and he's screaming and then it sticks its finger up his nose just to annoy him. It's funny and horrifying. It's both. You know, and what's that Mel Brooks quote? Editing CJ here. The quote is, "Tragedy is when I cut my finger. Comedy is when you fall into an open sewer and die." I really screwed that up the first time. The thing is about this, in Long Pigs, they make the horror and comedy take turns. So it's one gag for horror, one gag for comedy. So one gag for horror, you see him cranking a cable up to pull a corpse up as he's chit-chatting about nothing. And then comedy, he's reacting to the fact that one of the documentarians is puking in a corner. He's like, what the hell? What's wrong with him? And then, you know, horror. He's like, okay, so you get the drip pan in and then you just open up the throat there. And then comedy, the camera wobbles, falls over. And it goes back and forth enough that throughout the movie that you might not even notice that we've changed our tune. I mean, that 1-2 punch in that scene is very, very clear. For the most part, we don't do that. For the most part, the horror and comedy are much slower. So we're running on two tracks. Track A, he's working his valet job and playing beer league hockey and the barbecuing with his friend and talking about the ethical and economic and philosophical implications of, you know, what he does. And then the other half is the horror aspect, where you see him commit murder a few times and take corpses apart. And the whole movie puts these things together side by side over and over without telling you how to feel about it. And so you can't help but notice over and over that this horrifying man is pretty plain and normal and unremarkable. And I gotta be honest, the humor didn't land for me a lot of the time because it was just too subtle. What's up, Rufus? All right, so I'm just gonna reach down, pet the cat, and keep going. He is not giving it up. But, you know, this reminds me a lot of what people say about Sallow, how the banality of evil just sort of comes through. You know, these are people who consider themselves very normal in Sallow, and they engage on massive abuse on a large scale. Well, this is, damn cat hair, but this is the domestic version of that, the small scale version of that. And in that way, you're much closer to what's going on. We cut away to all these other perspectives as the movie goes on. We go to a radio host who talks about culture and just a lot of other BS, but he says it in such a smug way that I'm sure a lot of people think they're supposed to agree with him, but no, he's full of crap. They go to a psychologist who talks a lot about trauma and sexual deviance and a bunch of things that absolutely don't apply to our cannibal here. There's a cop. The cop treats this whole thing like a puzzle to crack, but there's no puzzle. It's just the guy who's opportunistic and grocery shopping when he picks up victims. And then, there's like the grieving father, and he just sees this as like a force of evil, like a big grim reaper monster out there. And it's much more boring than that. It's interesting because like you get exposed to all these different perspectives, and as you notice how completely off all of them are, it's hard to develop your own. You start to understand after a while that like there's no way that you're going to be able to figure this out, that you're going to be able to get a bead on like what it is about a guy that lets him do this. It's just a subtle, you almost want to call it a personality quirk, but the danger in admitting that to yourself is admitting that you might know someone who does this. I mean, I would have never believed it, right? Let's talk about the gore of this one. This was all done by Chris Bridges, who has gone on since to do a lot of other movies. What was it? Saw 3, 300 he did. And he did, what was the other one? Dawn of the Dead remake. So this was amazing resume material for him. And I understand why. Like, at one point we get the whole scene where he's got cables around the ankles of the body, and he cranks it up so it's hanging upside down, and he's walking through how everything gets done. So he's got the drip tray in, and he opens up the throat, and he's cut off all the clothes, and there's something even about cutting off the clothes that's so dehumanizing. I actually was almost more disturbed at that than at watching him cut off the arms and legs later. And he at one point he like cuts out a square sample out of the leg, and he's like, see, that's a perfect little portion. And then we follow him upstairs to go and cook it. Oh my God. But that's not the worst of it. The worst of it is when he shows you how to take apart the rest of the body, because the first thing you've got to do is close up the digestive system from the bottom end. So you have the ankles up there, and then you make an incision, and then you got to reach in, okay, and then extract out the bottom end so that you can tie it off, so that then later on you can open up the abdomen and pull everything out so it doesn't contaminate the meat. You get to see this, guys. Isn't that exciting? Oh God, it was so intense. It was funny because like the first time I saw that, because I've never seen that. You see human hibachi, you just see body parts and whatever, organs, okay. But this is watching someone actually take it apart. And there is a reason why it is illegal to film around farms in certain contexts. You never get to see them butcher pigs. You never get to see them butcher cows or chickens. It's actually illegal for them to film it and put it out into the public, because if they did, it would turn your stomach. But guess what? You get to watch it done to a human a couple of times. I think the last time you see it, it's kind of done in fast forward, and you're sort of just watching passively, like it's no big deal. And then they go out to City Hall. They do a New Year's thing, and they're like bored, and they kind of just want to leave because everything's boring now. And I think by that time you finally get it. You finally get how a person could consider all of this murder just a thing that happens in their day. But I'll tell you what I love. I love the ending. Now, I'm not going to spoil any of it, but the ending was so satisfying. And you think you know where it's going, but you don't. You don't. It has the kind of ending that's like, oh, of course, that's super good. That's super satisfying. But at the same time, you wouldn't have guessed that it would roll out quite that way. And I really liked it. I felt like as the credits rolled, I was feeling good. The only thing is, I just wish that stupid DJ got killed. I really hate that guy. Anyway, I think it's time. It's time to address the main question, the big question, the only question that matters. Should you watch it? If you loved Man Bites Dog, see this movie. If you love gore like August Underground or this movie was heavily influenced by Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer. If you like that, you got to see this. But in general, if you were the kind of person who just likes gory movies and you haven't seen Long Pigs, then what are you doing? It's like you're not even like a real fan. Come on. So you have to see it. No, but really, it's a good character study as well. If you're into like character study movies that just take a look at the anatomy of a person, this does an excellent job. It has despite the fact that it's horrifying and funny, it also is very coherent in the way it portrays a character's journey through life, I guess, or just how one strange person can affect the rest of society. Skip it if you don't like tonal shifts, because horrifying, funny, and the comedy itself is not laugh out loud too often. It's very rarely. For the most part, it's like droll humor, like documentarians sort of being unable to give him direction, but doing it in a really confident way. Yeah, just you can ignore us, or you can talk directly to us, or you can talk to the camera, or really whatever you want. Like that's supposed to be funnier than probably most people found it. So there is that. So if you need like on the nose comedy, this isn't there. It's very rare that they do on the nose comedy. Also, if you don't like gore, skip it. And if you need a plot with plot twists, there is an interesting twist near the end having to do with, again, the reason he became accountable. But I think you have to really be paying attention to pick up on it. Oh, the big thing, though, if you want catharsis, if you want evil to be vanquished and for him to really feel bad for what he's done, nope. It's too realistic for that, guys. Anyway, I'm glad I watched it. I think I really enjoyed it a lot more the second time through. The first time I watched it was really disturbed by the gore, and I found the comedy boring. And ironically, I think the second time I watched it, still found the gore disturbing, but maybe not in a way that sort of kept me from wanting to eat my meal, It wasn't so bad. And I found it funnier the second time. I started picking up on the humor a lot more the second time, much less. I really think I thought it was boring the first time. And the second time, I really actually enjoyed it a lot. So this is one of those ones that either your attention span's better than mine, or you do need to watch it a second time to really get into it. This is, funny enough, like not available anywhere that I could find except for YouTube. Just search for Long Pigs movie and it's right there. Freaking weird, right? YouTube's a jungle. That about covers it. Next time we're going to do Paranormal Activity, because I wanted to, cover a classic. Paranormal Activity was one of those movies that, I avoided watching for the longest time. I'd see the ads, it looked stupid. But after watching it, I'm like, oh, I gotta see all of these. Having said that, you know what? I'm obviously still open to suggestions, so shoot me your suggestions if you like. And if you liked this video, check it out. A playlist of other found footage broadcasts. And YouTube thinks you're really gonna like this one. So that's about it. Okay, my fellow found footage fanatics. See you next time. All right, we got there. Man, you would think I'd be getting better at these over time, but no.